Hi everyone, Angela Hall here, and I wanted to talk to you about chasing paper. I had a very dear and sweet friend close to my heart yesterday reach out to me. And she's in her 20s and she's a single mom and she's really trying hard to chase after the Lord. And she had a really good question, a question that I had many years ago. And she had heard yesterday in church about tithing and that, it's biblically correct that we are supposed to tithe. And why are we supposed to tithe? And how can we tithe when we're broke? And is this something that I do? Many of you guys know that I've been on a spiritual journey for many years, probably the last 10 years. But the first 4 to 5 years that I was actually on my spiritual journey, um, I was trusting God with everything but my finances. Like I was like, God, you can have all of everything else. I'll give you my heart and my emotions and my bad moods and my just asking you for everything that I need. Like Lord, asking just every day asking him for things instead of thanking him and being grateful. And I wasn't giving my finances to him either because I was like, no, I got that. Like you can have everything else, Lord, but I got my finances. Clearly, I didn't have my finances. In 2015, I was drowning in credit card debt. I was drowning in debt. I had no time freedom. I had no money freedom. I couldn't even fathom helping somebody else because I couldn't even help myself. Anytime my boys asked me to go somewhere or do something, it was always like, no, sorry, we can't afford that. We can't do that. I don't have the money. And it was always, that's all I could ever say to them. We never traveled. We never did anything to create memories because I couldn't figure out my finances. I was focusing on culture. And I was focusing on my addiction and I was focusing on numbing and trying to um, I guess just not pay attention to what was going on in my life. Like I just kind of wanted to crawl in a hole and like I didn't know how to get out. I was seeing the darkness close in and on top of me. In 2015, I was introduced to World Ventures, and it was a business that was in the travel space, and it was a personal development company disguised as a travel club. And it was there that I started to learn how to take care of my finances and how to make more money. And me and my kids were able to go on many, many trips. Like I've been on over 150 vacations. My world started to change. I started to get freedom, and I realized, wow, this is what freedom tastes like. But I was going through all of this and I was spending my money on trips and we were traveling and we were doing all these things. But again, I wasn't being obedient to the Lord. I was taking that money as fast as I made it and I was spending it. And I'm so grateful today that I spent that money because me and my kids created some amazing memories that now are my lifeline between me and my son in heaven. And I will continue to make more memories with my other son. But it's like I still wasn't being obedient from 2015 to 2019. It wasn't until 2019 that I decided that I needed to make a change and I was called to give my finances to the Lord. I was at a party, a New Year's Eve party that night, and if I wouldn't have gone to that party that night, I probably would have went and got an 8 ball of cocaine. And that's literally where my mindset was. But something told me that I needed to go to my friend's house that invited me that night. And I remember standing out on the patio looking inside as everybody else was inside celebrating the new year, as I was outside smoking a cigarette, contemplating my life, that if I would have made a different decision that night, something else would have been different. And I realized at that moment that, like, wait, God is trying to teach me something here, and now is the time that I need to give my finances to him. I flicked my cigarette off the patio. It was like slow motion going down to the ground. And I asked the Lord to put a bubble over me, to not have me crave cigarettes, not have me crave cocaine, not have my drug dealer call me, to literally I needed to give everything to him, and I started to tithe my drug money. And as I moved forward that year, every time I thought about it, I would tithe money. I would get on my Bible app and I would go over a scripture. And I think in 2020, I was a little nervous because the world shut down 3 months after me checking myself into a rehab center at Red Rocks Recovery, or Red Rocks Recover. And it was my recovery that I was fighting for. And I went to recover for 3 months on Friday nights, and I was completely sober. And then the world shut down in 2020. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And at that time, I decided that I needed to plug in more to the Bible app and just continue my walk with the Lord and continue to tithe. And I started to see the fruit of the Spirit as I continued to be obedient to what God had called me to do. And so I really started to follow my purpose. And I realized that the finances are the fruit of what I was focusing on. Like Proverbs 11:24 says, the world of the generous gets larger and larger, and the world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. So finances is an area where most people drift. It's like God called us to be a river, not a reservoir. So if he blesses us with money, he wants it to run through us and not stop with us. A lot of people are chasing paper, but they're chasing it for the cultural reasons, not for the kingdom culture. And I learned that you can't have paper without purpose if you expect to prosper. And the differences between those two is somebody that's focused on culture is up to their eyeballs in debt. And one that is focused on kingdom culture can lend and not borrow. And these are some interesting stats that I heard, and these are probably from 2021, so these probably aren't even current, but the average American household is in $7,000, average $7,000 credit card debt, $190,000 in mortgage debt, $27,000 in auto loan debt, $56,000 in student loan or higher education debt, and most of them don't have more than $1,000 in the bank, and they're all about one paycheck away from being broke. And guys, right here, that was me. That was me in 2012. I lost my job. I lost my place to live. And I literally, I realized at that time what it felt like to have no time and no money. Actually, I had time and no money. And that really sucked because it scared me and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I could have rolled over and become the victim and, become a system, a product of the system. And, just lived on welfare, maybe lived homeless. A lot of people can take the easy way out. And that just wasn't my purpose. My purpose was to rise up and show other people that if they obey what God is calling you to do, that you can change your life. Like I didn't change my life on my own. Oh my goodness. And I am here today to tell you that 100% that I believe that the reason that my life changed is because I started to be faithful with my finances and I started to tithe the first 10% of every dime that I made. I also had one more thought. So from 2015 to 2024, I have had every challenge and the worst possible nightmare in my life come true. I've gone from being drugged and kidnapped in Mexico, from losing my place to work, losing my home, being in a relationship where I was beaten and I was taken advantage of and I was stalked, and all the way up to losing my son. And then 3 months later, helping pray for my brother as he fought for his life after he was in a motorcycle accident and lost his left leg and was in ICU for many months fighting for his life. During all of that, I continued to be obedient. I continued to tithe money. The money that was in my son's checking account when he passed away, I tithed 10% of that and then paid off his car and gave it to his brother. The money that the coaches gathered through the GoFundMe, I tithed 10% of that. It doesn't have to be through your church. It can be to another church. It could be to an individual. It could be to an organization. It could be to Compassion International. It could be for a nonprofit. Whatever the good Lord is calling you to do, whether it's to tithe, to give a certain amount of money to somebody in another country so you can help their business prosper. All of these things came about because I started to be obedient to the Lord and what he called me to do. And I would never have been able to do any of that if I did not trust him with the first 10% of my finances. So the guys, what is said in the Bible is true. And I urge you to give it a try and see what happens in your life. God bless. Talk to you soon. So since 2019, when I started to tithe 10% of my income, My business rocketed. I was able to walk away from my job. I was completely time free. I was completely money free. I've paid off all my debt. I have been able to give like I've never been able to give before. I tithe well over 10%, and I help people in other countries, and I'm able to help my friends. I've helped my friends with rent before. I've helped my friends because I want to be a river. I want to be a river where the money that God gives me, that I can bless other people, and that it doesn't stop as a reservoir with me, because I have found the key to unlock the kingdom and to build the kingdom culture. And that is being 100% obedient and giving everything to God, including your finances. Because I found that, tithing 10% of maybe, $5,000 a month, it's like, okay, you've got to become obedient with small, because when you're tithing with $20,000-$30,000 a month, you have to start small. It's like God wants us to start small, and if you start tithing with the money that he gives you, he will continue to give you more. And I didn't believe it for the longest time. I was like, there's no way. I put it to the test, guys, and God says not to test him, but I had to do it myself. And that was the only way that I could find and hear in my mind of how to get myself sober and clean and be the best dang health coach that I could ever be, was by going through the process and getting myself completely clean and also having healthy finances. So I hope this gives you guys a word of encouragement today, that you can fight for your life, become focused on kingdom culture, and focus on giving away the first 10% of everything that you're blessed with, because you wouldn't have any of it without the good Lord above. So God bless you. Happy Monday, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.